Hey everybody, this video doesn't want to leave. That's amazing. How's it going?
Video wants to be part of the conversation.
It's like, why do you always click me out? Don't do that.
You're shifting around now.
How's everybody doing today?
Good. It's sunny here. It hasn't been sunny for months, so I'll take
Oh
that.
man, you're lucky.
I'm jealous. Yeah, we haven't had sun in months either. Good in spite of the fact it's not sunny.
Send it over our way after you're done with it.
Yes, please.
I'll do my best.
Okay, cool.
I'm in a good mood. You guys are in the conversation.
Cute call. All right, today, interesting topic. I don't think we've ever talked about market emails, actually, which is such a big topic in marketing and does have such an impact on the business. I'm surprised we haven't spoken about it before. We didn't plan much beforehand, so I think it'll be more conversational, which is always fun. Do you want to kind of set the table, Alyssa?
Yeah, sure. So this stems from a place of helping sales teams become even more effective with their outbound sales via email. So most, from a sales perspective, we operate better in conversations, in one-to-one sales meetings or strategic sales calls. But what can you do to lead gen a sales call with a warm or hot lead? And those would be qualifying your list of prospects effectively. So maybe it's a business that they said no to you. So you did second round of sales calls and they're like, yeah, no, not a fit, sorry. Or it's someone who just reached out and said, we'd like to learn more at some point. Or it's an old client who hasn't bought from you or rehired you in 6 months to a year or a while, or shipments are down, or whatever the reason is. There's tons of reasons why a warm or even hot prospect or lead needs to get reached out to. And so you can use email strategically, put on your marketing hat as a salesperson a little bit, and strategically use a personalized email to help warm them up to a chat.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's interesting you say that because I think we all do it sort of instinctively, but I think it's good to really think about what you're going to say and like you said, have a strategy on how you do that, and maybe create even some templates that you can work from. Because I think from personal experience, sometimes you might even avoid what might be a difficult situation. Example, someone ghosted you and you don't know what to say. So if you write it once and you have it as a template, rather than going have to, oh, what did I say to that person one time? Just create the templates. And I know a lot of people use templates, but I think it's good I like the idea of categorizing templates according to things that you do the most often. So like you said, even for answering to clients, because often the templates are, oh, we have your first call, your first email template, your second email template, but no one thinks of, well, once I've spoken to the person, what do I do afterwards? So I think it's good to create templates outside of where we traditionally create templates.
Yeah, totally. And making different templates as a sales leader for your team makes stuff more streamlined, makes things easier for your more junior salespeople to start to understand a process, or they're not left to their own devices to do their own thing. There's actually a formalized process with accessible templates, and that you as a leader and or a senior leadership sales team, depending on how large your organization is, can actually sit down and qualify your prospects or your lead list, whatever you want to call it, and then divvy up that work. Be like, hey, sales guy number one, you're going to write a list to all the people who have ghosted us after we sent them a proposal. Hey, sales guy number three, you're going to use this template and write to all the people who haven't ordered from us for the last 6 months and find out why. So you can build a plan of attack as a team and then be far more effective versus everyone kind of doing their own thing as best they can.
Yeah, and what I find cool with templates, because templates are really more for sales emails. Obviously, I know HubSpot, but I'm guessing other tools do it as well, is that then you can track the performance, right? So if you've written, let's say, 10 email templates for 10 different scenarios, you can look at their performance over time, right? Like, are salespeople even using them? And if they are using them, are people responding to them? And then are they tweaking that? Then you can go and tweak them and improve them over time as well, which I think is it's a great way. I agree. It's cool. I personally prefer the email template route that salespeople use as opposed to kind of the automated marketing email. Like I've worked with people that have done that, right? If a deal it gets stuck in a stage for too long, like it'll send off an email, or if if you lose a deal, like 90 days later, whatever timing makes sense, it sends off an automated email. I'm not a huge fan of those, just because. I mean, I guess it depends on the industry, but if we're talking about B2B and with account executives involved, like it does require a bit that human touch, and I think the just purely automated email kind of loses that. I can see how you're in an e-commerce type of business or a B2C or even a high volume B2B, an automated email makes sense. There's just too much of a volume for salespeople to do it manually, um, but if that's not the case, I definitely like the template idea.
Yeah. And everyone can tweak it as they like. It's just a base that, as a team, you all agree upon and you all feel good about using roughly. And then I think there's also a level of importance, and Paul, you'll probably appreciate and kind of can chirp further on this, but like there needs to be a level of personal understanding of the prospect you're writing to as well. So, hey, your last order with us was this big and we did this for you. In light of that, we're thinking about this. So you've done a bit of research on that previous prospect or the experience and interaction you've had with them prior. So it's not just a blanketed generic message. It's something
Correct.
personal that they can relate to and say, oh yeah, I remember that. Hi again. So it's personal. It's a sales outbound effort. It's not a blanket marketing initiative, but you're putting on your marketing hat to strategically write it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think in cases such as that, we have to come back to the basic principle of sales, which is when the person's reading it, they have to feel like, okay, how can, whoever is trying to sell to me bring me something of value that'll help me build my business. So, often we think we're being ghosted, but it's just the client's very anecdotally. I had a client just last month, in the last month, who I sent a proposal to, and I felt like I was being ghosted. But I've got enough experience now that I don't think I'm being ghosted. I know this person's super busy. So finally, kept on reaching out, and I was actually texting with this person because it's the best way to go. But in a reality, I could have said, well, I could have had a template which I would send out and fill in the blanks. So in this case, I knew specific things about the contract that he was working on. So I could say, hey, how's this contract going? Blah, blah, blah. And then let me know when it's a good time to chat. And I sent a few of these things. I knew he wasn't ghosting me. Finally, when I got through to him, he said, hey, thanks for not giving up on me. That's literally what he said.
Nice.
I'm still interested, but I got to say, like, I'm just underwater right now. So let's talk in a month. So I guess there's a secondary lesson here, which is don't take things personally. But the primary lesson is most of the time, if you can formulate that template, it'll keep you away from thinking of those sort of negative things like, hey, what the hell's wrong with you? I sent you a proposal and you're not answering me kind of attitude, or that victim attitude in your email. Whereas if you, consciously think about what it is you want to say and how you can spin it into a positive thing, say, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I know you're probably busy, whatever it might be, just whatever it might be. So
and
I don't know. Did I even answer your question?
Yeah, no, but I was going to add to that too, is that when I say trying those initial emails with more of a marketing spin, it's the idea that you're bringing value in addition to a sales initiative. So when you think about marketing, it always has to be bringing value, right? So you're either seeking to drive awareness or you're seeking to convert. And so in this sales effort, if you take that marketing spin on it, you could be, hey, I saw this article that I thought you might really like, or here's an interesting template for you to do your next planning session that I thought might be helpful. So a salesperson can actually connect with their marketing team, or the sales team can connect with the marketing team and say, hey, when we're doing our outbound sales calls, instead of just being like that generic sales message or even that personalized sales message, can we give something more? Can we add some value to this message that even if they just get a treat as a result of reading the email, and that's a very marketing-esque approach. But I think it could serve those outbound sales efforts even better.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Alyssa, could you sort of give an example of one you would see? Have you thought of this? Like, have you used this? Like, can you give us an example in a hypothetical situation or a real situation if you want?
Yeah, for sure. So for example, if I send, if I think of an example for me personally in my business, because I'm doing EOS facilitation, integration, and fractional integration work, I am anyone who says not yet to me, if I send them a proposal after 6 months or so, or the next quarter, I like to give them a tool or something, an EOS type tool that might be helpful for them. So it's a way for me to reach out and say, hey, we spoke last quarter. I know you were busy. I know this wasn't a fit. No worries. If it feels like fit now, happy to circle back and chat. But in the meantime, I wanted to send you this business effectiveness evaluation that you can use for your quarterly planning that I think you might find helpful. And within that document, there's links to my website. There's information about if you need help with this. Do you have a problem with any of these sections, right? Like, it's a sales tool, but it's a free evaluation that I'm giving them.
I
Right?
love
So
it. I love that's a great example. Now, what would you say to someone who, I know EOS is very much as a methodology, and there's probably a lot of tools that you have access to because you're part of it. What would you say to someone who's more of a who's not attached to a system? Like, what should they do? Like, should they create some kind of assessment? Should they create a tool?
Oh yeah, I'll send articles that I think are great. I'll send a Google Doc that they can use when they're planning their marketing next quarter. I mean, I have so many tools as a business coach, and I'm sure you do too, from a sales perspective, and Fab too from a HubSpot, how to effectively use your HubSpot better. Like, so many PDFs, so many presentations, so many worksheets that, I have a handful of things that aren't even EOS related necessarily that can be utilized. So yes, you can make up your own stuff, take things you do currently with clients and give some freebies out. I'm sure most businesses have lots of.
If I could just hop in and like maybe play devil's advocate here. So having been on the risk, Paul loves the devil's advocate.
He's leaving. He's done.
No, and I completely agree with you. And there's a lot of stats that show that sending a just following up email or bumping this up to the top of your inbox email like don't work. Like, people are busy and they don't really care about that, and it's more annoying than anything else. More anecdotally though, and having seen certain organizations try it, the tool thing can be like a dangerous thing also, right? Like, because you have to understand a bit, like Paul's example, right? He knew his person was busy, right? And so sending you a whole bunch of tools that potentially add more work to you just make it more distracting, right? So I like what you said, right? Like, well, maybe this is something you could use in your quarterly plan, right? So then you know that if you're sending it at like last week of the quarter, this is a great tool that we can use for the next follow-up, right? So I think you need to be mindful of which tools you're using and understanding why somebody, I know it's not always easy to determine why somebody's ghosting you, or why somebody said no or whatnot. But I think you have to try your best to be mindful in that, just because having been on the receiving end and I was looking at a tool and, they send me all these like spreadsheets, like the ROI calculators and all this thing. And I'm like, yeah, but the real reason why I'm not buying right away is that I don't have a clear use case right away. Like, I don't need all these tools, right? Like, and so all it does is it makes it annoying because I'm like,
Right.
you're just adding more work to my to-do list.
And that's where you really need your marketing hack, because marketing will tell you need to know your prospect and you need to know what's of value to that individual to choose the right thing, tool, article, whatever it might be. So you never willy-nilly choose what you want, you choose what they want. And so if you know them well, then you know. And that's why, from a sales perspective, and HubSpot helps you do this, and as a sales team, you should always be doing this, is like, I refer to it as categorizing your hit lists. As crazy as that sounds. It sounds a little harsh, but that's the best way I can think of it. Or your target lists, or whatever, I call it hit list. So it's categorizing your hit lists.
I like those mafia. I like those mafia connections.
Totally. We're getting hardcore here. So they're different, whether it's a different size of business, or it's a different type of prospect, or it's a different relationship that you've had with them. Those two things between knowing who they are and knowing what category they fit in will help you narrow down what kind of value add you can bring to them at the time.
I totally agree. Listen, I want to address what Fab said, and I agree with you, Fab, to a certain extent, in that if you create any kind of template and you are too if you're not discerning enough in who you send, what you send to who, you've got to expect either some pushback or some shutdown. But let's face it, if your strategy is I'm going to send out 100 emails to people who fit this category, and I might annoy 5 of them, and I might, make 25 people might just not care, but I'm connecting with 70 of them, might be worth it. So you've got to weigh that, right?
Performance, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying is because, and again, I'm bringing it up because having worked with a lot of people, a lot of times the focus is on the execution, right? We're going to create like 67 templates for reps to choose from, and then we're never going to track the results, right? And then you go in like 8 months later or 18 months later and like, okay, well, so one person sent off 3 templates once, it's never been used, or you know what I mean? Like that's I agree with you, right? Like it's not about not annoying people. It's about making sure you're adding value, what Alyssa said. And the only real way for us to determine that is if you're tracking the performance of what you're doing.
And to test things and to try things out. I think we all 3 of us have said this in the past, in other podcasts, other forums. I've had this conversation individually, Fab, with you, Alyssa, all together, is that you got to try things out. If you don't try, you won't know. And you got to test the boundaries. Like I knew this guy pretty well. I knew he was in the construction industry. I knew, I've had other clients in the construction industry, and I know when they get busy, it's like, forget it. They're busy from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I had that experience. Now, in another situation, let's say I'd been reaching out to 20 people who were not responding to me. Well, then maybe I could have used something generic, and maybe I would have annoyed 1 person or 2 people, but that's okay. And I can do tests, like, because maybe someone will say, hey, your email is really annoying. You said this and that. Oh, maybe I can tweak it. You've got to test things. And I've had people say, hey, this feels like spam. And then I say, oh, sorry. I mean, God knows I've sent a lot of things over my career. So, I think anyone who's in sales or touched sales has had that kind of experience. So it's to your point, Fab, be careful what you say. But to Alyssa's point, let's say, is you should still build it, because for sure, it's sort of like a politician. If you're talking to 1 million people in a province or 35 million people in a country, not everyone's going to like your message. So the
I don't think that's what I was going with. I think it's more a matter of being wary of what you're sending, right? And adding because I've just said on a lot of marketing teams that were like, hey, we'll create like a checklist of blah, blah, blah. And then and thankfully we've had some salespeople like, this is stupid. Like no one ever needs, like no one we've spoken to needs this, right? But if you're not careful, then you're sending this off and it's a waste, right? It's also a opportunity cost, right? You have teams working on this and you're sending them off, and you have, so that's what I was saying. It's just a matter of like it's not blindly sending.
Yeah, of course. You got to
that's what I meant. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I think where the heart of the topic here is, and it gets muddy, which is fair, between sales and marketing. That's just a bad marketing tactic, like just spamming people with general emails or dumb stuff. But when it comes to doing this from a sales perspective, you're already sending them the annoying sales email. Like you have to follow up. So if you take a marketing spin on your quote unquote like bugging sales email, does that make your sales email maybe hurt a little better?
Yeah.
So it's different. It's a different context entirely. You're not randomly like spamming a hit list of overarching blanketed marketing contacts. You're actually following up on a really specific, unique person that you've had an experience with or interaction with in some capacity, or the company has, especially from a B2B perspective. And you're making it a more interesting email than just your generic, to your point earlier. Hey, just putting this on the top of your inbox. Hey, we talked last month. Did you want me for coffee still? Right. So you're just giving something additional value. And whether it annoys them or not, you're still pissing them off with your email anyhow. So it doesn't matter if you attach something that might be in a lot of ways. But it could help you from a sales perspective.
Yeah, like, and I was just looking at my email here. I received one from, a person, I won't mention who sent me an email following up. It's not bad. Following up from a conversation we had last year, and his email has about 10 lines in it. Well, more than that. It's widescreen, so it's just like a thick paragraph. I didn't even read it. I'm like, oh, really?
It's annoying.
I'm like, garbage. So, but maybe this guy sent out 100 of these emails, and maybe 5 people got annoyed and said, "Hey, piss off," George. And then, probably 50% of the people like me just said, "Oh, whatever." And then maybe some of them like, "Oh my God, this is perfect timing. Let's talk."
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, it's just an email, right? I mean, worst comes to worst, sometimes I don't recognize the names. I'm like, I'm not even gonna read this, Boop. But so there's a reality there. And if he has a template, he's maybe spent 10 minutes. He's put it in his automated email, his HubSpot emailing campaign thing. Poof, it's gone out. And there you go. So, but I like the idea. What I like about what you guys are both saying, and I see now that you're actually, Fab, not disagreeing with Alyssa, but agreeing with her. If you create true added value, then it's great. So, for example, let's say I spoke to this guy about it was about building a website last year. So if he'd sent me some kind of self-evaluation tool, like 3 or 4 questions, is your website doing what it needs to do? And he's got like, I may have taken that assessment and say, oh, that's cool. If he'd said, hey, here's a little assessment if you want to know if your website really works, answer these 5 questions. Or in your question, in your thing, an EOS tool that says, are your sales meetings or are your meetings really effective?
Yeah. Or this is a friendly reminder to update your meta tags. Here's 5 steps on how you do that in case you forgot, right? Like something that's actually helpful to you to use, because they know you, they know their prospect, they know annoying things that happen after your website's a year old and you have to deal with and you don't want to. And it's also a great insight for sales to say, hey, are you struggling updating your meta tags? Is it annoying on WordPress? Do you want to slam your head against the wall? I can help you.
You should definitely switch to HubSpot CMS, guaranteed.
Definitely don't be on WordPress.
Unadulterated sales pitch.
Listen, it was there. I had to take it.
And I think, my point is that I think salespeople forget about the value of giving something, right?
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
This, like the idea of a freebie is more of a marketing brain thought, and I think salespeople can, it'll serve them well to wear that hat a little bit in their outbound sales efforts.
Yeah, and I want to give you a very out of my typical business field. I do a lot of music on the side, and on the side when I'm doing music, there's a certain software that I use to master and mix my songs. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm always going on this web-based application. And while I'm there, they're doing a version of this. So while they're mastering something that takes a little while, it's live mastering, they're saying, hey, you might be interested in watching this video on how to record bass, on how to record vocals. So it's the same thing as when you send me an email, we had a conversation, you sent me a proposal and you say, hey, I know we talked about this, and that, but, we didn't go too much in depth on this. You might want to consider this. Oh yeah. So I fully agree with that. And I think if you weigh it properly, it can really work to your advantage. And then it becomes truly helpful to the people who are looking at these tools. And, the person who turned me on to this, and it's Fab, about 4 years ago when we started the podcast, because I used to say, Fab, I don't want to tell anyone anything about what we do because they might use our stuff and then, not need us. And Fab said, no, give as much information as possible because they'll need it. So, and the success I've had on LinkedIn when I post my videos is because a lot of people say, hey, that's helpful, or this is interesting, because I give truly helpful things. Is it helpful to everyone? No. And I'm not emailing it, but theoretically, you guys just made me realize I got a ton of videos. I could actually email in follow-ups. I could email specific clips of things I've talked about in the past. Say, hey, we talked about sales process. I sent you a proposal on the sales process a couple of months ago. Not sure where you're at. You might be, underwater or whatever. But I just thought you might be interested in this little clip that talks about, how to best organize your sales process. Well, I think that's valuable. And I don't think I'm getting any pushback on that. And I could have a template because, usually it's sales process. Usually it's sales training. Usually it's sales coaching. Usually it's leadership coaching. Usually it's leadership training. What else you have in there? It's how to hire some good people. So you've got about, 10 big categories, and then I can, subcategorize and have some templates there. So I think for anyone, this is valuable. And honestly, mea culpa, I don't do this enough myself. So I love this subject. I think
that's what I was going to say is to add on to that, like, and I'm seeing more teams doing it, which is really interesting, is that, helping your sales team document why you're losing deals, like, like the win-loss reason is a traditional one, but really being specific about what the options are. And then, let's say you're a software company, or Paul, like, right, you lost a deal, and the last thing, they were interested in sales process, right? I mean,
I don't
obviously you're
lose
one
deals.
person.
I don't lose deals. Take that
you
back.
you're a one person show, so you probably remember a lot of the things that went
Yeah.
on. But when you're a larger team with a lot of more salespeople, it can be difficult to keep track of why you're losing opportunities. And then you could be like, hey, Alyssa, like, we just launched a new feature on our product. Here's like your 6 deals that have been lost because we didn't have that functionality, or that we're interested in that functionality. How about you reach back out to them? And then you add that personal twist with a video walkthrough or something like that. And I think that's super helpful, because helping your salespeople figuring out who to reach out to with what and when is great. I think that's really a big strength for an organization.
That's the thing, and that's where large sales team and large organizations can be more strategic and formulaic in how they lay it out. So it's not every salesperson is a lone wolf, like roaming the forest with their own strategy and plans. The more, as a senior leader of a sales team, you can streamline and keep things consistent, then you can actually track results a lot better. And you can use that hive mind of everyone's insights, whether it's a workshop that you do for a day or whatever, of, hey guys, let's build out some of these templates with all our collective brains and all of our collective experience to be a formula or a process that we as a team practice.
Yeah.
Let's create the templates or whatever.
I have a question for you guys, a very tactical question. So this is great. It's a great idea. I know how to apply it for myself, but what would you say, Alyssa and Fab, to a sales leader right now, listening to our podcast that says, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start. Of course, Fab, you might say there's some great, example templates in HubSpot, but so what are the steps to someone who hasn't done this, a sales leader? What would you suggest? How should they go about this to start doing this in a logical or effective way?
Mine goes even before Fab's, probably. Mine would be to map out your sales process first.
Okay.
Which ideally they should have done, and are you effectively using a CRM. But if they haven't gotten there yet, then it's map out your sales process. Or sometimes people, and Fab kind of probably test this too, although he builds it for people as well with what he does. But if you do have a CRM, then make sure your sales process matches your CRM. So your team is inputting the right information, right? Like it's a chicken and an egg situation. Ideally, you build your sales process out and then have someone amazing like Fab technically build it for you. But it's amazing how often people do it the backwards way. And then they're trying to track different information, then their CRM system is actually tracking, and it's ridiculous. You're like, you're just making chaos. What's the point of that?
Okay. So you're saying, first thing, understand your sales process and understand what happens at each level, and understand where the stalls may happen. And I suppose from those stalls, see, I guess where let's say you've mapped out your sales process, and a lot of things stall after after the proposal stage. Well, what should we, what templates or what could we say to get there? Now, let's say you've done that. Okay. And let's hypothetically, a lot of stuff is stalling after the proposal stage. Well, one, you may want to look at what's actually happening in your sales process, right? What are you saying? How are you booking those next steps? But let's say you're doing all that properly and you're still getting a lot of stalls or whatnot. And this becomes more of a nurturing template. So what would you guys say? So how should they go about? Should they ask the salespeople, say, hey, what have you guys written? Take the best examples and say, hey, let's build this. Should they build it from scratch? Is there a template base that they should go look at? What would you guys say? I have my opinion, but I want to hear you guys.
Yeah, go for it, Fab, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is just, it's always better to go with what salespeople have done before. I think obviously it's anecdotal because it's all, in their Outlook or their Gmail, and you're just kind of, you're not quite sure. But because of what I've seen in the past, especially when I was in marketing teams that were often, unfortunately, tasked with writing email templates for salespeople, is that marketers are not salespeople. Yes, you can have your sales mindset. I really like what you said, Alyssa, on that point. But at the end of the day, we don't marketers don't write like salespeople, right? Like, and so, you know, and the opposite, like some marketers have like these violent reactions to how salespeople write because it's full of typos and spelling mistakes and no capitalization and bad grammar. But I'm not saying you should write a template that's like that, but I'm just saying it's better to go from the source. And if a salesperson writes, you know, hyper casually and all,
yeah, they can work together, right? Because what I like about that, Fab, and if you don't mind, I'll jump in, Alyssa. What I like about that is that if you have a sales force that's been writing emails and they've had success, why not go from things that have been done? Yes, you can absolutely improve the grammar, improve the improve the style, you know, make it more palatable, but you've got all this valuable experience here. You might have an equivalent of 200 years. You know, you've got 20 reps that have been working with you for 10 years. You've got 200 years of experience. Hell, use that as a basis, right? Go start from there. Don't create it from scratch. And I'm sure all the best templates HubSpot has or whatever have probably come from salespeople and they've said, let's tweak this. This one works well, you know? So that would
but
be
then in parallel, what I would do is then make, like we talked about it earlier on in the episode, was try to create templates for different situations. Because one pitfall that I've seen is that you try to create kind of the ultimate template, right? And it just ultimately doesn't fit for anything. So let's say you feel like deals are stagnant, or you see, if you set up your CRM probably, that deals are stagnating at stage 3, for example. Well, what are the top 10 reasons why deals stagnate at that stage, and create templates for each one, and reps can go and, you know, obviously they add personalization to it. It's not like a blank, like automated email that goes out. But that's something that I would strongly advise too, is different variations for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really starts with finding out what's not working, right? So where are we losing sales? And that's where you start. What type of companies are not buying you? Are you going after them? Is your whole lead gen machine driving the 80% of these companies into your funnel, and then they're the ones that aren't buying the deal, right? So you can discover these things if you do that work. And so if you're in this process, you're assuming there's lead gen happening, and you as a sales team are at a stage where you interacted with this lead in some capacity, then you can also categorize them effectively too and find out which are the lowest hanging fruit, which feel like the biggest, best deals to actually go after. So as a team, you can also strategize as to which category of prospect you're going to actually go after first, because maybe you can't do all of it. Maybe there's 5 different levels of prospect. I go with the example of, you know, people who hired us but haven't reached out for a while, people who ghosted our proposals, people who we just talked to in passing but haven't really followed up with from trade shows, right? There's different levels of prospects, and you can build some simple templates, maybe even 4 or 5, of how you interact with those types of prospects. And by looking at your customer journey on whole and actually doing a deep dive with your CRM metrics, you can uncover where your lowest hanging fruit is, where the most prosperous deals have come from, and which ones have fallen short and why.
I really like that. And I'm thinking, as a sales leader, when I was a sales leader of a team, this is something that I think what a lot of sales leaders do is that they don't delve into that portion of things. They tend to keep their reps accountable, but they don't actually help them with specific tools. I don't want to blame every sales leader, but this is great because it permits a sales leader to say, hey, what's everyone doing well? Let's democratize this and let's create templates out of it. And this is a tool that I'm offering you guys, right? So I really like that for that reason too, because it involves a team helping the entire team, also by creating tools that will create efficiency. Because what I was getting, and where I'm getting to here, and sorry, I'm long-winded, where I'm getting to here is most good salespeople that have experience, and most good sales leaders that have experience, have templates in their head. They kind of know, oh, usually when this happens, I do this, you know, like they you know, and 90% of what they're writing is there. Create that template, share it with your team, or vice versa. You've got that best salesperson on your team that's been doing really well. Well, share what you're really doing is you're sharing their way of functioning, and you're sharing it with the rest of the team members. And that template doesn't mean we're creating something that is normalized. We're creating something that works, that has fundamentally been proven, and then we're going to get marketing to help us write it better so that it does even better, or maybe add some elements to it that make it even go further. So absolutely, the more we're talking about this.
Well, yeah, and also you could say like the salesperson thinks they're having success with that email, but having a template that everybody's using can maybe validate. A lot of people, salespeople don't realize all this stuff that they do, right? So they think it's the email that's crushing it, quote unquote. But the reality is like, no, it's because they do 16 follow-ups with calls and stuff like that. So I think that's where things get interesting. When you templatize, sequence everything, it's a lot of people think when we say templates or sequences, it's like removes the creativity, but that's not necessarily true in the creative, like in the email, the actual text you're sending out. But it is true in that at least we're making it trackable and measurable, and we can improve on it, right?
Yeah. I think the more collaborative sales teams can be working as a unit to help each other out to achieve a common goal of everyone making their maximum commission or maximum bonus. And, obviously as a leader, you need to set up a non-competitive environment where if everyone is rocking it, everyone is winning. Because if it ends up being a dog-eat-dog situation, you're just hurting yourself as a business. So that's just stupid. And hopefully most people don't do that. But you want a situation where if everyone is rocking it, everyone is winning, everyone's making money, everyone's feeling good, and you're as a team working to elevate each other.
And you know what, Alyssa, just to challenge you a little bit, you can still have competitiveness, but let's face it, I mean, your competitiveness should not come from the type of email you're writing, the quality. Right. You need to share those things, and you want to be on equal grounds, right? So it's okay to say, hey, we have a little competition, it's fun, but you don't want to create such a level of competition that people are not even sharing information. So I hear what you're saying, but you can maintain fun competition at a different level without holding back information. I mean, that's the worst thing in the world. If you're holding someone else back, if your sales comes from the fact that you're holding someone else back, it's not very nice. Now, if everyone's on the same playing ground and it's more of a question of like, let's all try to surpass each other, then you can keep that competitiveness and share that information that enables everyone to move forward. So
yes, totally. Yeah. Thanks, Paul. And I mean, like not everyone wins a participation prize kind of situation. There are like, you get recognized if you are a top achieving salesperson, but it's not, I'm not going to get that at the expense of someone else.
Exactly.
If there's 5 people who are killing it, 5 people get recognized, because the company's making money and they can afford to recognize people appropriately. But
unless they're selling low margins. No, I'm being
obnoxious. Cool. And I have no but whether it's even different territories or different types of people everyone's going out of, you want to build. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, you want to build a space where everyone needs to be operating at maximum capacity.
Yes.
Always. And recognized and rewarded as such.
Yeah. I'm reading this book now, written by a Navy SEAL, and he was talking about when they get recruited and they put them in teams. Now they compete against each other, but they still have to help each other out. And that's where you get the best out of someone, is saying, well, instead of you trying to drag someone else down, and so your level is here, you're working at 80% and you make everyone else fail. No, let's bring everyone up to 105% of what they think they can do, so that the real winner is actually achieving 115%. That's what you're trying to do, right? And that's what these tools and sharing these things are like. Hey, I'm going to tell you my technique, but hey, we can still compete on to see with whom will have the better success using this technique at the end of the month, or at the end of the quarter, or whatever it might be. So very interesting.
Yeah. And like if the prize is a trip to Mexico, you want 10 people to get that trip to Mexico versus 2, right? Yeah. You want more people going to Mexico, because that means more salespeople are killing it for you as a business owner. So yes, I think it's a reward, but it's not. The more people who are winning the rewards, the better, because the company's winning at that point too. And then you just raise the stakes if you really want to go to town.
Cool. I need to wrap it up. So on that, I hope everybody gets a trip to Mexico. Maybe we should get the Mexican
Yeah,
tourism board.
I want that trip to Mexico.
Me too.
Thanks, everybody. I think, yeah, this was great. It's hard to sum up. There's a lot of things, but I liked how you both ended it, right? At the end of the day, we started talking about email, like marketing, email, sorry, with a mindset. But at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? Is to make sure that the whole team is elevated and using the tools that you have available to help improve. Because you're right, like it's having a sales team and just leaving each rep up to their own devices to hope to try to build their pipeline doesn't help anything, right? That's just being, I don't want to say lazy, but that's just being like a sales leader who maybe had sales success in the past because they did stuff intuitively, but you need to elevate the whole team. And I think that to me is the best message of this show or episode.
Set your team up for success and use the hive mind to win more.
Love it.
Very cool.
It was a pleasure having you, Alyssa. And it's fun to have you once a month. Always great to have you join us. It adds an extreme amount of intelligence to having these two Fab and Paul guys chat with each other all the time. No, I think we're smart, but I think perfect example. You bring the level up.
Nice. There you go.
And I appreciate the challenges always.
All right. Cool. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Everyone.
Bye.